like take a pass at like, are there things you want to clean up on it?
Do tweets disappear?
No, tweets don't disappear. And in fact, that's kind of the funny slash like. Well, I guess I think that the flip is that like Trump doesn't care, right? So like he doesn't care that in 2009 that he, lit into Obama for golfing a few times. And like, so there's no incongruity to him golfing every weekend with what he said in 2008 because he doesn't care. But like, that's not going to work for everybody. So, if there are things like, Sean Spicer, I think, is finding this too. Like, if you're in public office and you're out there and you're putting statements out there on Twitter, they're going to be there and they're all searchable. And so, in fact, somebody built a search, like an actual web page search engine that has compiled all of Donald Trump's social media posts and public statements, like ever. So you can literally put in cancer prevention into this site and see everything that Donald Trump has ever said about cancer prevention in the history of like his public statements. So if you think about like, nobody wants that level of scrutiny, and I guess if you have that level of scrutiny, you might as well be Donald Trump and not care. But it is something that as people who go from, citizens and private accounts to doing things publicly, that I think you do need to have a cognizance about that is going to be out there. So if you're saying it now and that might change down the road, that is something that could surface in a, press statement or something that somebody else uses and sort of like bite you. 100%. Yeah. Any other questions on that? So editing etiquette, this is kind of like what we were just talking about. The internet moves fast and like people are tweeting and kind of like, I always say like, I don't know that I'm the best practice because I treat my Twitter like I'm Jack Kerouac or something, like I'm like narrating my life or something. So, but all of those things are out there and moving fast. So like if I post 20 times in a day, like I'm just moving on and like not really thinking about it, but those posts are forever, right? So, I definitely, my general rule of thumb is if you're hovering over that post button and you're thinking like, I don't know if I should do this. This is going to get me in trouble, or maybe it'll come back and bite me. Is it really just worth it, or just like pass? I mean, at some level, it's just social media. You still care about what you care about, even if you don't post it on Twitter. I think fake news, like, and I put it in quotes right now because I feel like it's such a like hot topic, and like, what does it even mean? To me, what that is when you're sharing articles and you're sharing other things that other people have posted on social media. A lot of times people just share without clicking the link to see what's even there. And so I think there's a higher level of scrutiny right now with things like that. And so instead of just reading the headline and hitting retweet or forward, take the time to click that link and see what's there, and make sure that you agree with it, that it's not a misleading headline, the advertising and the things other around it might be offensive. You just like don't really know. And so most people, honestly, especially on Twitter and Facebook, they read a headline on social media and they're like, yeah, I agree with that, or no, I don't agree with that, and they forward it on, right? They don't go in and read the article. But again, higher level of scrutiny probably doesn't make sense to forward things that you haven't read yet, especially when we're in an environment where there's a lot of internet news companies that are really just like trying to get clicks. And so provocative headlines are one of the ways to do that.
Clickbait.
Clickbait indeed. I mean, there's a way to be clickbaity about what you're putting out there that is generating clicks for the causes that you care about. So like in some ways I encourage clickbait, but like be careful. And then managing comments. I think that you probably will want to think about this a little bit and how you want to handle it personally. But if you're going out there, we talked about this a little earlier, if you're putting something out there about a cause that you care about, you may have people who comment on that or tweet back to you that you don't know, that are just being negative, or they hate your spouse or whatever. And I think it's just good to think about in advance, how do I want to handle that? What do I want to let get to me? How do I want to get through those situations? I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that later, but in general, the 3 ways that I think about it are let it lie. Like, it's not, most of these comments no one else is seeing. So like let it lie. Who cares? Don't engage. If it's straight up misinformation and you want to correct it and you feel like you need to respond to it, but be succinct and get out. And if it's somebody who's just a troll, who's just harassing you, use that block button quick, fast, and get them off your page. You owe no one to be on your page. It is your page. So, if somebody is consistently bothering you or being negative or weird, get rid of them. And to that level, if they're being threatening in any way, 100% report them to the platform, and feel free to also report them to the police if it's at that level. I actually, even when I was at ARP, I feel like that should be like a mild-mannered like social media job. You could post something about kittens and bacon on your page, and people would be like, I hate Obama. Obama's the best. And then all of a sudden you have 500 comments of people arguing about Obama on this post that has nothing to do with politics. That just happens. It's social media. I wouldn't sweat it too much. Really save that kind of blocking things for when people are really being threatening. Yeah. Yeah. So I hide my annoying relatives who argue with me about politics on my page because I don't really want to see their posts, but I don't want to offend them and have an awkward Christmas. But when it comes to somebody that I don't even know, that's like a friend of a friend of a friend who someone found my page and is deciding to like argue with me about something, especially if it's multiple times, like sometimes I'll see it once or twice and let it pass. I don't really care. If it's somebody you don't know, like feel free to block. If it's your page, you don't owe anyone. It's not the congressperson's page. It's not an official page. Like, it's your page. So you should not have to be harassed by anybody about anything that you don't want on that page. So you can either block them or hide them, your choice. I tend to keep hide for people that I actually know in real life that I just don't want to see what they're posting. And I get people ask me this a lot. If you block somebody on Facebook from being on your page, if you hide them, they don't know. And if you block them, they do. And then same thing on Twitter. If you can mute people, or topics or hashtags, like people have been like the big buzz this week has been like people do spoiler alerts, like when you're live tweeting a show or something like that. And so they just changed the mute policy that you can like hashtag Bachelor finale and mute it so you don't see what happens if you're not there, or Walking Dead or whatever. But so you can use those tools liberally for people that you know. But again, if it's, use your judgment, and if you have that like weird spidey sense that like it's sketchy, you don't know anybody being on your page.
Hiding the things unfriending?
No. It means is you don't.
Blocking, is that
blocking, yeah. On Facebook it's called unfriending, and on Twitter it's called blocking. Yeah. So they just use different terminology. And they're all, everybody's dealing with the same things on this kind of stuff. And so all of these platforms are constantly trying to devise new tools that keep you on the page. Because if somebody's constantly harassing you on a page, you're not going to want to spend time in that environment, right? And so Facebook and Twitter and all these places are constantly trying to get smarter about how to use these tools to allow you to have more control over what's on your page and what that conversation is. They're all, they change fairly often. You usually get an update. There is a security on Facebook page that you can follow. That's a Facebook page. So you can get all the updates, which is what I do. But they're always just in your privacy settings. So if you go on the top right-hand side of any social network, there's like a drop-down menu. And if you click on privacy, it'll actually like walk you through all of the different settings. And just, I tend to do that like quarterly. I just set a reminder in my calendar, and like quarterly I'll go through and I'll double check who's on those. There's also, I think for you in particular, if you're doing a post on cancer prevention, you don't care who sees it, right? Public. You can choose that little like option for it to be public on Facebook and have that it's a little world icon. But if it's something that's more private, only people who are friends or friends of friends. So the more, I know it's a pain, but the more you can get familiar with those privacy settings, the more control you have over keeping your page personal, where you want it personal, and public for causes and things that you want to publicize.
So you can literally do it post by post.
You can do it post by post, and if you make a mistake or you change your mind down the road, you can change the privacy settings on every post. It's right underneath every post. There's a little drop down. If you see the world, that means it's public. It's open to anybody, even people you block. Maybe not even people you block. And then you can click and change that to friends. Or like, I'm a big list builder, and this is not in the 101 section here, so I'm not gonna like delve too far in it, but you can literally make lists. So like, I have like people in Florida that I like all the time. Like, if I'm going down to Tampa to do something, I don't want everybody I went to high school with to know that, but I want like the 15 friends that I like might want to see to be like, oh, let's get together for dinner and talk about it. You can make a list of those people and like just distribute to them, or only family, or only people you went to school with, or whatever. It's a little time consuming to set up on the front end. It's much easier to maintain as you go along. But again, that's a little deeper. Yeah.
Walk us through, who sees, when you put friends, who's going to see that? All your friends.
Everybody that you on Facebook have accepted as a friend request from. If it says friends, it's everybody that you have accepted a friend request from. If they've asked to become a friend but you haven't answered, that won't show up. There's also a friends of friends setting, so that kind of is like distributed. So like, if you, I will say the exceptions to the rule. Let's say I post in my feed a picture today with Lisa, and I tag Lisa in it, and then I choose friends from mine. It'll be distributed to my friends, but because I tagged Lisa, it will also be visible to her friends. So if you're adding other people to it, then you're enlarging that mix. But if it's just something you're posting, it's just to your friends.
But it's not going to be seen by all your friends.
So this is the tricky thing. It can be seen by all your friends if you choose friends. So this is like, again, this is like 3.0, but I'll give you like the highlight. So basically, when anyone or anything posts to Facebook, again, it's trying to get you to spend more time there so they can tell advertisers how sticky they are. And so what Facebook does is they surface that post to 2% of the people who follow that brand, that organization, that person. And if the 2% of people that they put it in front of click like or comment or share or in some way engage with that post, then Facebook's algorithm basically says, oh, well, people who are seeing this post are thinking it is interesting, so we'll serve it up to more people. So again, that's like a little bit of a content strategy down the road, but it's sort of like if you're not just trying to keep it tight with friends, if you're trying to amplify something and have like a really big issue push on something, then you're definitely going to want to think about things like that, because the more calls to action, or the more people you tag in something, or the more organizations that you tag in something, will enlarge the audience of who would potentially see that. And not, again, think of it like a cocktail party. So use this infrequently, but you also, when it's a really big deal, you want to make an ask. So if you're posting about preventing cancer, that's great. But if your real goal is to get donations or to get people to show up to an event, you have to be like very clear with people about what you're asking them to do. So you'll see sometimes people say things like this post if you want to prevent cancer or whatever. It is a very sort of low bar tactic to incentivize that algorithm to show your post to more people.
But you're still not going to get to all your friends. You're still at Facebook.
Probably not.
Mercy.
Well, you're at Facebook's mercy, but I would flip the script on that a little bit and be like, if you're not posting things that are interesting to your friends, then like, do you really care if like every single person sees it? So like, if I'm posting something and no one that follows me thinks it's interesting and engages with it in any way, then like, why should Facebook owe like flip the script and put it on you. Like if you have that weird friend who's posting all of the stuff that you don't want to see and you haven't muted them and Facebook's forcing you to see it every time, then like you're going to stay away from Facebook. So I think part of it is like you have to put on the other hats of the players in the equation to think about whether or not Facebook's trying to control the game. Facebook's trying to get you to use their platform by giving you interesting content. Period.
And so when you put public in there instead of friends, who's going to see?
Anybody that clicks on it. So like if somebody went to your page to click on it, or if we're friends, you post something public and I comment on it, it might start serving up to my friends. So it's kind of a ripple effect. I always think of it as like a ripple or a Venn diagram that like you post something, if it's public, if this person engages with it, it ripples out this way. If this person engages with it, it ripples out this way across their audiences. That's why you see a lot of people like tagging news organizations, or you tag people or you tag organizations in a post, because all of that amplifies it out a little further.
So like if you had like 1,000 friends, the people that are actually going to see your post, maybe just a small sliver of that. Right?
Yeah.
And I know, is that right? And,
Yes.
And I know on my feed, I get the same people all the time. And,
Yeah.
And I don't see what 900 of people are doing. So
Yeah.
And there's no way to except to go in and like.
There is a Facebook option to go in and some of us may be old school Facebook people enough to remember that like you used to log on and you would see posts in your news feed in the order of how people posted them. So it was like literally like almost like Twitter does it today. But what Facebook was finding out in their research with user testing was that if people opened up their Facebook newsfeed, and the last 5 posts were people who, is their weird friend from high school that they accepted, but like they didn't really know, or like a bunch of political rants or whatever, people would close out and not use it. And so they started surfacing content, and you'll see a lot of these platforms mimic that now, where they'll surface these things like, while you were away, you missed this, or they'll surface things higher in your newsfeed. That's not like a human being making that decision. That's essentially a computer algorithm on the back end that's showing that you or people like you, profile-wise, are engaging with this type of content. Yeah.
So if you want your 15 friends in Florida to know for sure, all 15 that you're coming to Florida, you would
Tag.
Email or text or...
I probably would text them. But from a Facebook perspective, the only way that every one of those 15 people would know would be if you tagged them in the post.
You can do that.
Yeah. So you can like essentially address it to them. Yeah.
The news feeds run so fast that even though you're sending them to friends that are,
Yeah.
they may not see it because it's gone before.
Yeah.
Does it make sense to repost something?
No, if you really want, okay, we'll separate that. So the average Facebook post hangs less than, I think, 15 minutes. So if you get into this thing like, did somebody see this or not see this? If they were not on their computer on Facebook in that 15-minute period, they probably did not see it. On Twitter, it's less than a minute. So Twitter is like basically, I think of it as like the news scroll at the bottom of like, Fox or CNN or like whatever. So like I don't sweat missing anything on Twitter because it's just going so fast. But Facebook's a little bit different. It's a little more personal. The way that you could make sure that people see it, again, is like to tag them, but I think that's only up to 30. I think you can tag up to 30 people and then it stops you, because I think it's algorithm says like more than 30 people is like you're spamming people. You kind of wouldn't want people to always be able to tag you and stuff. So the flip side of that is a content strategy. So like, do you want, if you're saying that you have, I'm going to use preventing cancer as a example. If you're wanting to get the word out about an event or a cause or something like that. So this is what I do for like companies or people. You really that if you post once, people probably won't really see it or at least recognize it. What's the rule of thumb that people have to see it like 5 times to even pay attention to it? And so essentially what I do is, again, not personally, professionally, but like I develop content calendars. And so like, for instance, like I have a president of an organization that I work with, and every week I send her, 15 tweets and 5 Facebook posts on the issues that she cares about. And then she cut and paste them and post them in her accounts. But it's sort of the easy button of like, having a content strategy without having to do it all herself. But if you think about that, like you're right. If you really care about an issue or you really care about something, you want to do more of a distribution of posts, not just one. But I would caution you to just not post the same one over and over. So think about how to say it in different ways. Again, if you're thinking about it as you are your own media outlet, then like you can talk about the same issue 30 different times in 30 different ways with 30 different visuals, but that's a like much more complicated social media strategy than what most of us do on a daily basis on, say, Facebook. But yeah, absolutely.
And that is one thing that we're trying to encourage spouses to do, is we're developing to go along with monthly awareness. Like May is Skin Cancer Awareness Month, so we're sharing with spouses posts that you can. We'll create them and make a list and send them out to you at the beginning of the month, and then through the month you might use that on your Facebook post or use it on Twitter.
Yeah.
And is there a problem that
it's so helpful? It's an easy button.
That Alfredia might be doing that in Georgia, and I'm doing that in Massachusetts.
No.
Because we're
It's great. It's honestly it's a tip to game the system a little bit. So like there's no Facebook and Twitter, they're not going to recognize that you're necessarily using the same language. So in an ideal world, I would say like customize it in your own voice. If you're sharing a like calendar of content and you all want to amplify preventing cancer messages for a certain month or a certain time period or around a certain event, take the content that Lisa and Prevent Cancer are giving you and think about how would you want to say it in a different way in your own words, or do you want to tell a more personal story, or do you want to whatever. So make it your own if you can, but that's a huge asset, because that's like having that customization and editorial calendar is honestly such an easy button that most people don't have, that you can just kind of cut and paste and it won't matter. Now you'll see things like, I put pink streaks in my hair yesterday. Like, I don't know why, whatever. But I woke up this morning and I was like, okay, Planned Parenthood's doing this huge thing today, and it's called like Pink Out online. And I was like, I swear I did not do this for Pink Out, but that's I feel like what everyone's gonna think. But I like went and I did look online, and I was like, oh, I want to see what kinds of internet tools they're using for this campaign today to activate this message. Now, this drives me crazy as a active internet user when all of a sudden everybody on the internet's cut and pasting the same message. I feel like it kind of like it dilutes the message a little bit. And so, today when you're looking at social media, you'll probably see that activation either in real life or on your social media, and think about how you perceive that. And so that's the kind of thing where if you're getting cut and paste messages and you're getting them out there, if it's the 20 people in this room, or frankly, every member of the congressional families, it's not that big of a number, and you're well distributed across the country, so it's not going to feel that spammy. But do you want everybody across all of your networks to say exactly the same thing? No, because it kind of dilutes the message. You want people to tell a personal story and customize it in their own way, and that's what really makes it more effective.
I think an analogy to that is all of our spouses, and I was a health staffer before I was a spouse, but there's those campaigns where you get postcards or whatever, and everybody,
yeah.
And for constituent mail, those are taken less. I mean, they
right.
kind of tally them, but that's less than a handwritten letter. So, that tells a story.
Exactly.
So that's sort of the same analogy there.
Good analogy.
With our congressional families, is 2 hashtags too many? Like if we have hashtag congressional families, hashtag we prevent cancer?
So I would say yes, but mostly that is a straight up character limit issue. So if you are using 2 hashtags, then you're taking up essentially 30 characters out of 140, so you can't tell your story as you don't have as many characters. Most people struggle to get a point across in 140 characters. I actually think it's a sign of a really good writer that can like really get their message out in 140 character or 140 character bytes. But if you take 30 characters out of that, then you're really, really tight. So it's not that the 2 hashtags are a bad idea from a reach standpoint. On places like Facebook and Instagram, where you have much more space, it makes sense. On Twitter, it's just a little bit tight on the real estate. So if you're doing a Twitter campaign in particular, maybe choose that one.
Right.
And I would say choose We Prevent Cancer, because it will have a much bigger reach than Congressional Families, because other people will identify with it and take that message further. Hashtags are only effective when other people use them. I used to fight this all the time at AARP. As you can imagine, AARP thinks it's very smart about every single thing it does, and it acts very sort of paternalistic a lot of times, where it's like, we know exactly what's right for you. This is the message that we're using, blah, blah, blah. But, everything would want to have like AARP branding in it and, kind of be like, AARP fights for you, or AARP healthcare. Like, normal human beings out there in the world are not going to add hashtag AARP fights for you to their tweet. All you care about is that they're talking about preventing cancer. So like, at some point you don't really care about the hashtag. It's a metric that you can track. It's kind of a general awareness. It's kind of a PR tool, but you just want people talking about the issue, whether they use your hashtag or not. And then so the last point here is determine if you need staff or freelance help. Probably not an option for most people. But again, like we talked about, when you're working with an organization, and so what Lisa was saying in particular, that an organization or a support person that can help you by even just doing first drafts of tweets or messages, so that you can come in and look at it and say like, oh yeah, this is great, but I'd say it in this way, or I'd use this or whatever, and then you can handle it yourself, is a huge asset. So, if you can figure that out, or if you can tap resources on that, it will save you a lot of time. And it will make a much easier shift from going how you handle it personally today to thinking like this. Support along the way, this is kind of a little bit what we were talking about. Ongoing learning, so things like this where you're doing trainings or you're learning, or if you're following news sources online or people on social media who you learn from, is great. I encourage sort of ongoing learning, period. But in this space, it's so important because it changes so fast, and the changes typically are small and subtle. But if you're not sort of paying attention to them, you may log on and be like, I don't even know, like they'll change the format or they'll add a whole new thing and you'll be like, what the hell is this? And sometimes just shut it down. So continuing to kind of ongoing learn, and hopefully you guys will have more of these where we'll get deeper into some of the more strategic ways to use it. But editorial calendars, again, that advanced writing, first drafts of things, and being able to have that as a huge asset. To some extent, to whatever extent you have, being able to get reports on the back end. All of them have free tools that you can use, but there are also deeper reports that you can get with paid tools. So it's really important to me when I do a campaign to not only actually execute it and put it out there, but doing a Facebook post and doing a tweet is not the goal. The goal is, raise awareness or raise money or generate volunteers, generate people at the event. And so you need to know at some level what messages worked, what messages didn't, so the next time you do it, you can focus your time, which is very limited, and your bandwidth, which is very limited, on the things that were most effective. And then from a media standpoint, I think this is something that is so important to a content strategy, is anything that has a photo or a video, any kind of graphic attached to it, always outperforms something without it. So if you can start thinking about moments and events that you're at, and if you're thinking a little bit longer term, snapping a picture or two at something around preventing cancer or cancer awareness, or visiting a hospital, or visiting somebody who has cancer, or some kind of situation that you're already in, and snapping a picture of that, then you can attach that and use that in your social media editorial calendar strategy down the road. It's also, I feel like, a little bit intimidating, but flipping your phone around and doing a quick video, 15, 30-second video for a very important cause, not all the time, I think, or having somebody doing it for you, is videos, especially like 15 to 30-second videos, are really high performers right now. So if you're really, really getting into a cause, videos are really important. Beyond the basics, just really like figuring out what's your goal and what message do you want to say. Like I said at the beginning, social media is not some magical thing. It's just a communications platform. It's just talking to people. And so, figuring out what if you're working on a cause or a campaign, what's your message, what's your goal, and making sure that what you're doing is aligned with that. Concise, like we were talking about 140 character limits. Even if you're on Facebook or Instagram, all of these different things, the tighter you can make it, the better. If it's, you guys know this from your own feeds. When you see these long diatribes, you sort of just tune them out. So figure out how you can say it in a personal way that's compelling, that has real life implications, and it is concise is huge. You all offer your own unique perspective based on your lives and where you come from. And that's so important to telling the stories around causes. And again, I can't reinforce visuals enough. If you even just snap photos of, general life, if you don't use them yourselves, you may want to use them down the road for different things that you're at. And then all of a sudden you'll be doing a campaign with Lisa and you will be like, I wish I had taken pictures at those 5 things this year. But if you've already kind of just got them in your phone and you did them at the time, it'll save you a lot of time and make your posts more effective. So how are we doing on time?
We're good.
Okay, cool.
We're at 20 of 11. And this Mary Himes thing is an awesome example. She did this on her own before we prevent cancer.
Well, do you want to say a little bit about it? Because I feel like you know a deeper story.
I mean, she just was going to a dermatologist. And
Yeah.
without us, this was without us even generating or asking her to do it. But she took a picture of herself in the mirror in her hospital gown, getting ready to have her skin checked. So it says, I had my annual appointment today with my dermatologist. Please make an appointment for yourself to make sure you don't have or get skin cancer. And if you're lucky, your doctor will have fairly chic gowns to wear, like this one, spread the word, preventative medicine. Now, if that said we prevent cancer, it would have been perfect. I mean, it was just, that's exactly the kind of thing we're talking about. Your everyday stuff, if you're going to the gym, if you're going to yoga, if you're going to a doctor's appointment, if you're you make a healthy meal, like clean cooking with your congresswoman, which was the Debbie Wasserman Schultz thing. These normal, or if you're walking in a 5K or whatever, just your everyday activities that are, furthering these messages.
Yeah.
Other people see them and it sort of makes them think about it. So it's very, very simple. And she got people, she told me she got people back from that, because I said, because I'm just friends with her, and I saw it like randomly. I was like, oh my gosh, that's like so great. She's like, I got people that, got back to me and said, I made my appointment, thanks for reminding me, kind of thing. So, the impact you have is so much more than you would ever think. Sometimes people just need to be reminded, or they just need to focus, or they need to have their focus redirected.
Yep.
So there's a bazillion things that you're already doing, healthy behaviors that you're doing right now, that if you share them, it engages people.
Yeah, I have found, and I don't know if it's organized or if it's just kind of happening, but I have found that I've had a lot of friends like live tweeting going to mammograms and being like, this is like, because it's such a weird thing and everyone like hates it. So like all these like women are kind of like sharing experiences. And again, like you're getting a mammogram, so you're not probably taking a picture of it, but sort of just the anxiety that goes into it and like talking about the appointment. That wasn't as bad as I thought, or like, ouch, that hurt, or like whatever. But like that's
where you feel so great.
Yeah.
So glad I
but
did that.
But the amplification of the need to get tested is something that's so huge to the cause. And so it's, if you're saying it and you have 100 people following you and you get 5 more people into mammograms, that's a huge difference. It may be a life-saving difference for one of your friends.
Colonoscopies,
Sure.
There's a lot of anxiety around it, or whatever. So yeah.
But I think that, like, to your point too, and this one is a good post on it. I think you can. It's all about your personality, but like the ones that I find most engaging are when people are like funny and sarcastic and real about it, because it's just sort of something like everybody hates, but everybody has to go through, and so being real with your friends about it and the way that you talk about it, I think is really crucial to that awareness piece and sort of destigmatizing it. One of the things that I think on this who to follow section, maybe we can either talk about it in the open discussion later, or if you guys decide to do like a closed group to share tips and best practices later. But who to follow is really subjective. It's who you think is funny, or who you think is informative, or whatever. We tried to share a few best practices here. I'm a longtime John Dingell Twitter fan, so I think he is not only a hilarious sort of Twitter best practice, but he's like mixing it up and live tweeting the basketball tournament and like debates and sort of all these different things. So like you don't have to be as active as John Dingell is, but I think he's a best practice for what a profile looks like that is both personal and professional and cause and advocacy related. It's that sort of 360 look at a human being. And also probably a good example for how to handle Twitter trolls, because like sometimes he engages and sometimes he doesn't, and when he does in a beautiful way, I screen grab them and add them to my presentations on how to push back.